Stay As part of the Martin Luther King Jr. Day programming last Monday, juniors watched a performance of the theater department's Identity Show. 7 performers, directed by Emiliano CACERES, class of 22, and Denise Tavernas, class of 21, performed a series of monologues exploring the different aspects of their identities. Here are live reporters Audrey Sun and Theo Randall with the story.
Thank you. Despite taking place in a fully virtual setting for the first time, the Identity Show directors felt that the performance transferred well and described how the cast was able to still maintain a sense of community. According to CACERES, his role in directing the show in a unique setting pushed him to consider the connections between the stories of each performer.
I would say then the difficulty for me as a director was keeping up with everybody and keeping up with everybody's pieces because I can see everyone in a physical place. So I sent out a lot of emails. I had a bunch of one-on-one FaceTimes with people, that kind of a thing, to really try and maintain that sense of community. Seeing people's stories interconnect and intertwine and people having the courage to share that is astonishing to me, and it's something I really have the privilege to be a part of.
We talked to a few of the performers in the show about their experiences. Emma CHEUNG, class of 23, EMMBROOKE FLATHER, class of 22, and Victoria ORTIZ, class of 23, each found learning to be vulnerable during rehearsals and on stage to be challenging.
My overall experience in this class was absolutely amazing. I think both my favorite and I think the hardest part for me was just sharing with people. I think towards the beginning, I was really nervous to be more vulnerable because just me personally, I have a harder time being vulnerable. But I think towards the end of the term, I got more comfortable with our class. And I just had this safe space where people were just there to listen and I wasn't going to be judged. And I think that was definitely my favorite part of the class.
I feel like was least vulnerable in actual class, but maybe one of the more vulnerable during the actual show. Like everything I said in class just had nothing to do with what I wrote actually in my actual piece.
Overall, from the experience, I learned that it's okay to be vulnerable and that it's really powerful when you're able to share that with people, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to share your story, especially if there's people that you might not be as familiar with. And so that class was able to really help me through that and show me that it is okay to take up space and to share your stories, because that is super important to educating people really about anything. I think that storytelling is a really big part of educating and getting empathy from other people to understand where you're coming from and to obviously build those deeper connections with others.
CHEUNG noted how they were pushed to think about parts of their identities they had never really considered before. FLATHER also described how she was stretched during the writing stage of rehearsals, often getting stuck or taking time to think outside of the box during writing prompts.
I really had to do a lot of introspective work. Yeah, it was hard. There were some days that I literally couldn't write anything because it's very emotional, I guess, writing about yourself.
I really enjoyed being able to dive into different parts of my identity that I didn't really think about before entering the class. So I thought that it was a really transformative experience.
I think I learned so much about both myself and my classmates. I was able to talk about and explore parts of my identity that I had never let myself talk about. And I also was able to hear all my classmates' monologues and their writing.
Although meetings were conducted remotely, all 3 performers we interviewed agreed that opening up and sharing in the Identity Show brought them closer to all of their castmates. They also enjoyed being able to share and learn from their classmates' different perspectives.
I think my biggest takeaway from the class was just that I wasn't alone. And through my classmates, I was able to realize that there were so many other people that, kind of knew what I was going through. And I think that was just really nice to know that I had like this group of people to support me, and I think that was definitely like my biggest takeaway, and then also my favorite part.
So my favorite part, probably just the people, the Emiliano, everyone in the cast, very supportive, very great, awesome, amazing people.
And my favorite part probably was the collaborative piece that I did with some of my friends who are also from New York City, just because we were able to bring in all of our different perspectives into the video and just show other people how we as POC kind of think about our day-to-day lives when we're in New York versus Andover and things like that. And obviously we don't all have the same experiences, so it was also really cool to see how all of my friends interacted with the city differently or similarly to how I do.
We also spoke to some of the juniors who watched the show and discussed it in workshops afterwards. ALLIE ENCARNACION, class of 24, spoke about how she enjoyed hearing all of the performers' different perspectives and learning about the question, what is identity?
I guess it took me a second to realize, like, just because I'm Dominican American doesn't mean that everybody has the same experiences as me. For some people, it's really, really different.
Both Encarnacion and ALANA CHIANG, 24, connected specifically to the monologues about religion and parental expectations. Alyssa Kim, 24, recognized the courage it took for the performers to share so much about their personal identities on stage.
I remember talking during the workshop about a specific scene that stood out to me. I think the part about religion and parental expectations preventing people from expressing their true identity was really interesting and provided a completely different and completely new perspective for me.
I noticed that, I believe it was Angie, she spoke about religion and her parents' expectations of who she dates and her sexuality, and how that's actually really different than what she is, but how she was constantly conflicted between her parents' expectations and religion and then her sexuality. And I noticed that in the background she had a Dominican flag, and I'm Dominican, but at the same time I'm very American, so it was very interesting to me to see how we can be the same nationality or identify with the same place, or how, and then still have very different experiences.
My overall impression of the play was that it was just really, really impressive. The courage to step up and talk really took a lot of guts, and it was interesting to hear their perspective, but it was also very encouraging too.
Finally, Ortiz and Cheung compared their experiences watching last year's identity show with actually getting to perform in it. They encouraged any student who wanted to participate in this production to do so.
It was definitely hard to get there, but towards the end, it was definitely worth it. I loved the class so much.
Overall, I just was so thankful to have been a part of the show. I remember watching it last year for our programming on MLK Day, and I knew immediately that it was something that I wanted to be a part of. And so if any of you want the opportunity to explore your identity in a more creative way with the help of those around you, definitely sign up for Identity. It was an experience that I will remember probably for the rest of my life, and if you sign up, you won't regret it.
This is Theo Randall
And Audrey Sun reporting.